Hello dear lovely audience, welcome back to another reality TV new recap. Everyone, I know y'all have been waiting for this. Thank you guys so much for your patience. President Trump said Israel would have a green light to finish the job if Hamas refused to agree to the ceasefire deal. President Trump on Monday cast his plan for a ceasefire in Gaza as a landmark deal to bring peace after 2 years of catastrophic violence. But in reality, it was more like an ultimatum to Hamas. Standing alongside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, Mr. Trump unveiled a proposal to which both men had agreed. If Hamas refuses to do the same, Mr. Trump said, the United States will let Israel do what you would have to do. Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas, said Mr. Trump, who under the plan would become the temporary chairman of a board in charge of the redevelopment of Gaza. The joint appearance by Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu at the White House was a clear display of unity at a moment when Mr. Trump has shown signs of frustration with the Israeli Prime Minister, and when much of the world has grown horrified at Israel's prosecution of the war against Hamas in Gaza, which has killed tens of thousands of Palestinians. But it was far from assured that Hamas would agree to their demands. The U.S. plan contains provisions that Hamas has said publicly it will not accept, such as its removal from power and disarmament, leaving the proposal's future uncertain and increasing the possibility that Israel will intensify its military campaign in the enclave, with the full support of the United States. When it comes to this plan, no one contacted us, nor were we part of the negotiations around it, Taher al-Nono, a senior Hamas official, said in a televised interview. The proposal calls for an immediate ceasefire, after which Hamas would have 72 hours to return all Israel hostages, both dead and alive. In return, Israel would release 250 prisoners sentenced to life, plus 1,700 Gazans who were detained after the October 7, 2023, massacre. Once all hostages are returned, Hamas members who decommissioned their weapons would be given amnesty. Notably, the proposal says nothing concrete about a pathway to Palestinian statehood. While it recognizes statehood as the aspiration of the Palestinian people, it says only that while Gaza is rebuilt and when an overhaul program by the authority is faithfully carried out, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to statehood. Hamas would have to agree to play no role in governing Gaza in the future. And while Israel would pull back its forces by degrees within the Gaza Strip, it would maintain a sizable buffer zone inside Gaza's borders for the foreseeable future, Mr. Netanyahu said. Elliot Abrams, a senior fellow for Middle Eastern Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations who worked for 3 Republican presidents, including Mr. Trump, said the Israel military campaign had put Hamas in such a weakened position that its leaders might have to accept the deal to save their own lives. It would have been a reasonable calculation for Hamas to say, look at the increasing isolation and condemnation of Israel. They will have to stop soon, Mr. Abrams said. But Trump eliminated that possibility today. Now they won't have to stop. This really corners them. Mr. Netanyahu proclaimed that the proposal achieves our war aims. And he said he would determine whether or not Hamas was complying with the agreement. If Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself, Mr. Netanyahu said. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way. The two leaders originally had planned to take questions from reporters, but in the end they did not. The moment was reminiscent of Mr. Trump's appearance with President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia last month in Alaska, where he sought a peace deal in the war in Ukraine. Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin appeared before reporters without an agreement and declined to take questions. While the U.S. plan gives Mr. Netanyahu much of what he wants, it also shows that Mr. Trump has moved away from his proposal earlier this year to force Palestinians out of Gaza as part of a redevelopment plan. Under the latest proposal, Mr. Trump said, Palestinians would be encouraged to stay in the Gaza Strip and offered the opportunity to build a better Gaza. No one will be forced to leave Gaza, and those who wish to leave will be free to do so and free to return, the proposal states. We will encourage people to stay and offer them the opportunity to build a better Gaza. Still, the plan, even if Hamas were to agree to it, leaves many question marks and would deeply involve the United States. Gaza would be governed by a committee called the Board of Peace, of which Mr. Trump would be the chairman and which would undertake its redevelopment. Such an arrangement would constitute some extra work to do, Mr. Trump said, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it. Mr. Trump has long remarked on the potential value of the waterfront property of Gaza, and he did so again on Monday, lamenting the fact that Israel allowed the Palestinians to have control of the land. As a real estate person, I mean, they gave up the ocean, he said, adding, they gave up the ocean. I said, who would do this deal? Other members of the Board of Peace would include former Prime Minister Tony Blair of Britain. That board would govern Gaza until it determined that the Palestinian Authority had reformed itself enough to take over, the plan states. He has created a peace plan that, if in fact Hamas accepted it in principle, would require an extraordinary lift by the United States, said Aaron David Miller, a former longtime State Department official who is now a Middle East analyst at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Every single point is going to be negotiated to death. Mr. Miller said he was struck by how the peace proposal seemed to hinge so much on the president personally playing a role. Trump signed up for something that I think is going to require an extraordinary amount of American involvement and monitoring, and he's made himself the key monitor, Mr. Miller said. This is not a throwaway ceasefire agreement, he added. This is the full Monty here, and at the top of this full Monty sits one Donald Trump. Trump and Netanyahu tell Hamas to accept their peace plan, or else. Jerusalem, in a surprise joint press conference held in Jerusalem, former U.S. President Donald J. Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu unveiled what they dramatically called the final deal, a new peace proposal for the decades-long Israeli-Palestinian conflict, this time with a blunt ultimatum. It's very simple, Trump said, standing on a stage draped in both American and Israeli flags. We have a beautiful plan. The best peace plan. Maybe the only peace plan. And if Hamas doesn't accept it, well, there will be consequences like you wouldn't believe. Netanyahu, speaking in Hebrew and English, backed up Trump's declaration. This is a unique moment in history. We are giving Hamas one last opportunity to join the world of civilized nations. But we will no longer tolerate terrorism, rockets, and incitement. Accept peace, or face the full weight of what comes next. The two leaders, whose political careers have been defined by controversy, populism, and combative rhetoric, seemed perfectly in sync. The tone was forceful, theatrical, and unmistakably threatening. A plan decades in the making. The new peace plan, dubbed the Deal of the Century 2.0, is a reimagined version of Trump's earlier proposal from 2020, which was largely dismissed by Palestinians and international diplomats alike. But this time, Trump and Netanyahu say the plan is non-negotiable. The plan includes a demilitarized Palestinian state in parts of the West Bank and Gaza, full Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem, a $50 billion economic package funded by a coalition of Gulf states, allegedly including Saudi Arabia and the UAE, no right of return for Palestinian refugees, a disarmament clause requiring Hamas and Islamic Jihad to surrender all weapons within 90 days. If they disarm, if they give up the hate, we're ready to build them something great. Think Dubai and Gaza, Trump said. But if they refuse, let me be very clear, Israel will not wait. And the United States will not stand by. The ultimatum: accept the plan within 45 days, or suffer a response that will be historic. A shift in strategy, or a campaign ploy. Trump's surprise visit to Israel comes as he campaigns for a return to the White House in 2026. His reappearance on the global stage, especially alongside Netanyahu, who has his own political battles amid ongoing protests and legal challenges, was seen by many as a calculated move. He's playing to his base, showing strength, posturing like the global peacemaker again, said Dr. Layla Rami, a political analyst based in Amman. But peace cannot be dictated with threats. Not in this region. For Netanyahu, whose coalition remains shaky after months of civil unrest and judicial reform controversies, the spectacle with Trump is a return to familiar ground. This is vintage Bibi, said Israeli journalist Dan Ravid. Pivot to security, posture against Hamas, and rally the right. Reactions from Gaza and the West Bank. Unsurprisingly, Hamas rejected the plan within hours. We will not surrender our weapons, we will not give up our land, and we will not accept dictates from occupiers or their imperialist backers, said Ismail Haniyeh, speaking from an undisclosed location in Qatar. In Ramallah, the Palestinian Authority issued a more measured response. This plan, like its predecessor, is a political stunt designed to normalize occupation and erase Palestinian rights, said PA spokesperson Nabil Abu Rudina. Peace cannot be imposed with threats of war. Yet some younger Palestinians voiced fatigue over endless conflict. Honestly, if it brings real peace and economic opportunity, maybe it's worth considering, said Nora, a 27-year-old entrepreneur in Gaza. But we've heard promises before. They build towers while we bury the dead. Global response: mixed, cautious, concerned. The international community responded with a mix of skepticism and concern. The European Union issued a cautious statement urging all parties to return to good faith negotiations without preconditions, while Russia and China criticized the plan as unilateral and coercive. Saudi Arabia, notably, did not immediately comment, though sources suggest Riyadh is quietly exploring normalization with Israel in exchange for U.S. security guarantees, a potential backdrop to the Trump-Netanyahu initiative. The United Nations, caught off guard by the press conference, called an emergency Security Council meeting. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, "Peace cannot be threatened into existence. It must be built through dialogue, justice, and mutual recognition." The "or else" what exactly does "or else" mean? When pressed by reporters, Trump smirked. "Let's just say, we've got options. Big ones. And Israel, they don't play games." Netanyahu was more direct. "We will not allow Iran-backed terror militias to hold our citizens hostage. If Hamas continues its aggression, we will respond with unprecedented force. The age of restraint is over." Israeli defense officials confirmed that contingency plans are in place for a full-scale ground operation in Gaza, coordinated with new U.S. intelligence and logistical support. This could be the most significant military action since 2014, possibly larger, one IDF officer told Haaretz anonymously. Meanwhile, rumors swirl that U.S. contractors and advisors have quietly returned to military outposts in the Negev and Jordan. Some fear a wider regional war, others see this as a high-stakes gamble to end one.